Maria Fernanda Verduzco Robles is a 19-year-old Mexican university student currently completing her studies in business engineering at the University of Guadalajara. Fernanda began working for Pacific Rim Property Management and Elevation Construction Group at the age of 17 with the position of executive assistant. Later, she moved on to the position of brand developer and is about to complete her second year working for these companies. She is characterized by being a very creative person, always being at the forefront and skilled in technology. Fernanda has always stood out as an exemplary student, being in various science, literature, and technology contests in which she has received various awards for her research. In her free time, Fernanda likes to read, paint, and learn new languages. Hey, Fernanda, thanks for being on your show today. It's nice to chat with you again, as I chat with you just about every single day, but it's nice to have this time to actually get to know you a little bit more and to share your story with an audience. But I know we heard just a little bit about your bio, but if you want to take a couple seconds or a minute or so to tell us who you are and what you do.
No, thank you for having me. I'm pretty happy to be being interviewed in my own show with you, Chris. So it's pretty awesome here. So
Good, good.
yeah, just a little bit about myself is I'm 19 years old. I'm studying financial engineering here in Mexico. I've been working as a virtual assistant for almost 2 years. So yeah, it's been a great journey so far. It's just a lot of learning and just a lot of trial and error, I would say. But at
Mhm.
the end, everything is worth it. So yeah,
Yeah. And this is your first job, correct?
yeah, this is my first job.
First job, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So how did you hear about remote work and virtual work and things like that?
Well, so I would say just remote work is not that popular here in Mexico. It's just
Mhm.
like um and we just have to define like what remote work is. Like the way that we work here is that you work for a foreign company, mostly in United States. So we have
Mhm.
team on Philippines, Mexico. So yeah, you can work from wherever you are, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. So and yeah, it's not that popular here. Normally, you will get hired from a local company, and they will tell you like, "Hey, you're going to be home office," and that's it. But they're not really like located in another country.
Right.
So I heard from it because I had this family member that actually worked with you, Chris. That
Yep. Mhm.
she said like, "Hey, I think you mentioned to her that you were looking for an assistant."
Yeah.
So she was like, "Yeah, I have a niece that she's pretty good. She's studying high school, but she's really organized and responsible."
Mhm.
So I think that's when she told you about me, and that's how I got the job. Just I was in the interview, everything. I was so nervous about it. I remember I was just like, oh my God, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say is just, I remember just reading all my English textbooks from like all my life, just trying to memorize the vocabulary,
Uh,
the grammar, and everything. I was like, I'm going to screw this up. But yeah, it was just amazing
yeah.
on talking with. And as I told you, I didn't have any job reference or something. It's
Yeah.
just like it's my first job. I'm going to have my first interview ever. It's going
Uh-huh.
to be in English,
Yep.
and I don't know, with a CEO of a company in the United States. So I don't know. It was just like a lot of feelings that day. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'm getting the job, but I don't know. It was just pretty easy to talk, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, so I'm just going to be myself and just like show the CEO what I have, and what
Yeah.
I learned through all these years. So
Yeah. And we talked a couple times about that interview, like a year after the interview, and just kind of remembered the behind the scenes. Right, we're just talking to each other what you were
yeah,
doing, what I was doing, and I remember how, like, I was just impressed with your English. It's like, oh my gosh, wow, she's at that time, what, you were 17, right? So
Yeah, I
I'm
was
like, all right, she's
17.
17 years old. How much could she actually do? I remember when I was 17, it's like, I don't know if I would have my 17-year-old self do this job, but let's give her a shot, right? So, but yeah, I was like, wow, her English is really good. All right. So, and then the initial, job description was just, I needed you to check my email while I was out and about traveling
Yeah.
around. And, as years went on, you just proved yourself that you had so many other skills. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's bring you on. You're full time. And we expanded your role from there. But I don't want to get too far ahead here. Um, but what? So you got the virtual job. What makes you want to, or what made you decide to go for a virtual job vice a local job there where you live?
Well, I think it's just there are so many things that are different from a local job here. Like
Hmm.
I think it's just sometimes virtual jobs are more flexible in a way. For example,
Yeah.
you don't have to go to a place, just traffic, gas, and everything. You don't have to spend on all those things. Just like get your you're in your house, you start your computer, and that's
Yep.
it. You're at work, you know. So I think that's what was the main thing because
Hmm.
when I was hired, I was high school, starting college.
Yeah.
So it was just, I don't know if I can work. So everyone said that it's just too difficult to do that and that you cannot balance work and studying at college because it's just difficult, you know? So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, maybe a virtual job is going to help and everything. And it's just also the salary. I think that's the difference.
Hmm.
And just like if you haven't heard Pete Newbeck's podcast, go and watch it. It's pretty
Mm.
good. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah,
good.
it's just related to that a little bit when we were talking with Pete that salary here is, I don't know, not that good. You're paid in pesos and you get pesos and that's it. So
Yeah.
in those virtual jobs, you're paid in dollars and then you convert them to pesos. So for the company, it's a not, well, I don't know what you will say, Chris, but it's kind of a cheap job position because you are not paying the normal fee that you will pay in United States. So for us, it's just like really good money, and for you, it's
Hmm.
not that much of money there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say cheap because I don't want to make it sound like, oh yeah, I got cheap people working for me, right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I would say, just a lower cost of labor, right?
yeah,
Which matches the cost of living where you all are living at. So, we've got several members in Mexico, and I think it's a win-win for everyone, right? Because a lot of our team members are stay-at-home moms and they want to work, but they quit their professional jobs to stay home with the kids, but they still want to work and they have time. So this virtual position works out perfectly for them. They make the money that they're looking for, and then I get a quality person on the team. So it's certainly a win-win for everybody involved. And I just wish more people knew about it, which is why we're doing this podcast, right? So people know
yeah.
more about the virtual world, the virtual work environment and stuff. So kind of going back to the interview, what were you kind of talked about your expectations, like you didn't think you were going to get the job or anything like that, but um, if someone in your shoes were going into their first interview for a job, knowing what you know now, right? Because you've been a part of several interviews with me and interviewing other people that sometimes we hired, sometimes we didn't. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, it's just confidence. You have to be confident on what you know. You know,
Hmm.
like I've seen several videos of several interviews that people that we wanted to hire.
Yeah.
And just like if you see their CV is what like amazing. You're like, wow, this
Hmm.
person really knows what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Like all these languages, all these jobs, and all this just amazing things there that I was
Hmm.
like, wow. If I was standing like beside that people, I would be just like nothing, you know. But what's the difference?
Yeah.
It's like the confidence because
Exactly.
they're in the interview or they
Hmm.
are in the or they're in the video that we asked for and they're just like so nervous, like so stressed, and you're like, okay, so demonstrate what you have here in your CV, because I'm not saying that you just seem nervous, and I
Mhm.
get it. Like, I've been
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
You're just so nervous, and you're like, I just want this to end, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm doing wrong or right, and you just feel that the other person is judging you. Like,
Yeah,
you're like,
right.
this person, every time that I talk, they're like, okay, so what they're saying, like.
Mhm.
So if you demonstrate what you know, like, okay, so I'm going to stand up here, I'm going to talk with you, and I'm going to talk with you about all the things that I know. And I'm confident that I know those things because
Yeah,
I
right.
have several years of experience. So I think it's just that's the main difference of being hired or not. Just
Right.
like if you're confident or not on what you have,
Mhm.
on what you know. And also just like being just being open to learn,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
if you're like, maybe I don't know this, but I'll learn. So if you can teach me, I'll learn. And
Mhm.
if you don't want to teach me, I'll search. But
Yeah.
I know I'm going to learn,
Mhm.
I know
Yeah.
I'm going to know how to do it, or I'm not going to disappoint you in this. So
Sure.
it's just like, I don't know, the eager to learn, being
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm confident of what I know right now. But I'm
Yeah.
also confident that I'm going to learn all those things,
Yep.
and I'm going to prove to you that I have the potential to be in your
Mhm.
company.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I think just from all the interviews that we saw, like, CEOs are not always looking for the most uh beautiful CV. They're not looking for the
Right.
most just like with the mode with a lot of jobs there,
Yeah.
or with
Right.
really high studies. They're looking for someone that it's just also communication is a piece, and we've
Mhm.
seen that, like, you
Yeah.
need to communicate with people in the right way. Assertive
Right.
communication is just pretty important, and that's why
Mhm.
we do like all these trainings that we have with the team.
Yeah.
That it's just like, okay, team, so we're having training, so what are we seeing today? We're seeing, I don't know, communication, leadership,
Yep.
uh vulnerability. So those are skills that you need on your everyday life, and they are
Mhm.
going to make the change of being hired or not, or
Yeah.
just staying at your job, or just being fired.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just like that's really important on
Yeah.
interviews.
Agreed. Yeah. And then you brought up a good point about confidence, right? Because the difference between confidence and arrogance is I know everything and I'm good
Exactly.
at everything. Confidence is like what you said. I know I'm pretty good at these areas, but I also know I'm not good in these areas, but I'm willing to learn, right?
Exactly.
So that's the difference between confidence and arrogance. So that's a very important thing because you don't want to go into an interview and say, "Oh yeah, I could do that. Oh yeah, I could do that," and then they hire you, and then you don't perform very well. So and that's probably another podcast we can get into to help employers. Like, okay, what's your interview process look like? What things you want to look for, and how do you and what values do you hire people? So, we can get in, probably make another podcast show on that one.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Yeah. So back to you. So this is your first job. It's just not a job, but it's a job where you have to use a second language. Talk a little bit about that. How difficult was that? Is it still a challenge for you? Has it benefited you? Or talk a little bit about that.
Well, that's a good question. And that's something that, for example, I've been learning English since I was in the kindergarten, just
Hmm.
being in these bilingual schools and everything. I have family also in the United States. So it was just like, if you want to talk with your cousins, you need to learn English.
Hmm.
So, but it was never just, okay, so I know English. I can watch a movie in English and I'm going to understand. Or
Yeah.
I'm going to make myself understand if I'm talking with someone, but just having a job that it's on English, it was just, oh wow. So what
Yeah.
I'm going to do,
Yeah.
what if a client is like, what did you say? Like, I can
Hmm. Hmm.
understand your English. So I was so nervous about that. So I remember that when I started working with you,
Hmm.
I was a little with emails and everything, but I was just also looking at the translator. I was like, I'm not sure of this email until I look at the translator and I'm making sure that it's okay, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember that you were like, yeah, phone calls, you don't have to answer the phone calls if you don't feel comfortable. Like, you can just wait
Yeah.
later, you know? And I remember the first phone call that I had. I can't remember the name of the client, but I remember the phone call.
Uh-huh.
I was so nervous, but so nervous. I was just freaking out. I I heard the phone and I was like, I saw the number. I was like, yeah, this is a US number. So I have to pick up the phone. And I was just like sweating palms. It was just horrible.
That's funny.
And I pick up the phone. I was like, hi, good afternoon. I'm Fernanda Christensen. How can I help you? And I remember this girl, she started talking because she was just like curious about one of her properties. And I tried, like, I was just like with the translator on the other hand. If I was like, if I heard something that I don't understand, I just look for
Yeah.
it. But I was like so nervous at the moment
Mhm.
that I was just like, okay, so I'll talk, and if I screw this up, if I'm fired, like, we'll see. But I don't
Yeah.
want this to go any further. So
Mhm.
I was just like, okay. So I talked with her and she was like, yeah, thank you for the information. Yeah, it was pretty helpful.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, thank you. Have a great day. And I was like, okay. So I passed this one. So it was just like
You passed this one.
every time was like that. So
Yeah.
I remember just also a call that we have with a client who was a little bit rude on that
Mhm.
one. So
I think I
yeah,
remember this one. Yeah.
yeah,
I know who
yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah, we'll remember this one. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, this guy, I remember talking to him. He was pretty rude. So
Mhm.
I finished the phone call, and I think I sent you an audio. I was like, "Hey Chris, we got a phone call from that guy, and I don't know, he was just like pretty demanding and everything." So I remember finishing the audio and just started crying because I was like, this
Oh,
guy
wow.
just yelled at me and I didn't know what to say, and because he was just like, what are you saying? And I was like, just like the biggest fear of someone talking a foreign
Yeah,
language. I
right.
think it's that, like I can understand what you're
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
and that gives like all your confidence and all your self-esteem. It goes to the
Mhm.
floor.
Yeah.
So I remember I started crying. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like my English is just horrible. I don't want to learn a foreign language because like before I started working, I was learning German. So it
Mhm.
was just like more difficult. And I was like, I don't want to learn any language because I'm not good at speaking and everything. So I just remember my mom telling me, like, hey, it's going to be tough and people are going to yell at you. And you,
Yeah.
I know it's different because it's in other language. So maybe you froze and you were like, what should I say? Maybe if I was talking in Spanish, it would be easier and just like,
Right.
just to respond in a way,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I know English. So I'll try. I'm going to make mistakes and I know
Mhm.
that, but
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think it's going to be a lot of learning. If someone said like, "Hey, that's not the supposed way to say it," or "That's not correct," okay, so I'm going to learn. I'm going to improve there, and I don't know. My English is going to get better.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now that you mentioned that at the interview, you were like, "Wow, her English is good." That
Mhm.
gives me like that self boost, like that
Yeah.
confidence. Like, okay, I did it right. So yeah, I think it was just that at first the phone calls were the tough
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
And also I would say just another thing that comes to my mind, it was training. The first time that we did training,
Oh, yeah.
I
Mhm.
remember I was just like pretty nervous, and it's just like I when I was at that point, it was everything is just not on your favor, like
Mhm.
I'm 17 years old, this is my first job, and I'm talking a language that it's not my language, my usual
Mhm.
language. So I was like, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start talking with this bunch of people that are like 30, 40 years old that probably know more than me that had like all those jobs
Mm,
and that their English
yeah.
was better.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a big challenge there, just to start talking and being like, okay, team, so we're having training today on stream ownership. So like, did you do your questions? Like,
Mhm.
let's talk and everything. I think it was just like a big challenge for me just
Yeah.
to talk with all these experienced uh, person there. So, and also I remember the first time that I went to Washington, like it was
Mhm.
last year. So
Yeah.
I remember I was just like so nervous. I remember we were like going with two clients to a property.
Mhm.
And I remember just like the day before, I was like, what I'm going to say, should I just dress like an elderly woman just like for me to look older? That way they're not going to realize that I'm just 18, that I just turned 18.
That's funny.
So I was just like so nervous. I was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do and everything. So I was like, okay, so I'll be confident on what I know. And we also have this guy on the team that he's young. So I
Mhm.
think that also helped that he was there. So I was like, okay, so I'm
Yeah.
not yet the youngest here. Like
Yeah.
there's someone that is also young.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just talking with them, and they never said like, oh, you're young, or oh, what are
Right.
you saying, they were like, okay, so it's good, like
Yeah.
she's talking, she's giving her opinion, and they were just like really taking my opinion
Mhm.
like and count. And that's what was the most important thing, that the only person that didn't believe in me, it was me. So it
Yeah.
was just like,
Exactly.
no one said like she's 18 years old. No one said like it's her first job. No one said anything
Yeah.
like that. It was just me saying that to
Mhm.
myself and
Yep.
just
Exactly.
believing in that. I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I can do it and I can do it. And that was just like a self-limiting
Yep.
quote that I have on my mind every time,
Mhm.
that I'm not going to be able to do it. But then I did. I was like, wow, wasn't that hard? I
Yeah.
learned. So
Mhm.
I think it was just like, that's something really important that I learned through these 2 years of working, just being confident on who you are and just
Yeah.
believing in yourself. Like
Mhm.
if other people believe in you, why you're not going to believe in yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about training a little bit later, but that's one of the things that we talk about a lot is the self-limitations that we put on ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves, our thought life, because thoughts will lead into actions. And so we have that ability to control our thoughts. And a lot of that is just how we talk to ourselves. So, but anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about training. Kind of switching gears a little bit regards to, your life. I mean, you're a full-time student. When you first started, you were in high school, but even though COVID was a bad thing and it still is, the benefit of that for us anyway was that you were at home and
Yeah.
you were already close to graduation. You pretty much were like, top of your class, finishing up your stuff, and your teacher's like, ah, you got it. Don't worry about all this other stuff, right? So you had free time.
Yeah.
And so it worked out well for you, worked out well for us. But now it's different. Now it's different because now you're in college. You're on your third semester, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
third
Third.
semester. You just started. And then uh, it's a little bit of a different animal because we've had to make some adjustments on how you and I work together. But I would say the biggest challenge for you is just management of the two things because you're a full-time student and you're working full-time. So how do you balance that?
Well, it's just as you said, when I was in high school, it was just everything was easier. Also, I had like all those chemistry contents that I went to. So it was just like I had like all the semester free because I was like, okay, so you're in this contest and you're going to have this classes off. So that was easier. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. It's going to be easy just to transition to college. But I
Mhm.
was wrong. It's just college is difficult and
Yeah.
more studying. just I would say when I wanted to start college, I wanted to study chemistry engineering. So that's what I was going for. I was like, yeah, I'm going to study that. I think it's going to be easy because I already had the background because all my high school it was just chemistry, studying and everything.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm,
just like
mm-hmm.
all this contest. So I already had something there.
Yeah.
And I was just when I entered college, I was like, I don't want to know anything about finance or anything about those stuff. And then I started working, and I think that's when you asked me to do the forecasting.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, I really like this stuff. So, okay, maybe this is the path that I'm going. I'm going to study finance engineering. So, I started the career at I started studying, and it was just difficult because it's something that you're not that used to, and that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't think that you were going after that. So I remember the first 2 semesters, they were tough. Just like,
Yeah.
okay, so
Mm-hmm.
what should I do? I didn't want to learn this, but right now I'm doing this. And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
what seeing all your classmates just being so uh participating and just knowing all this stuff. And you were
Yeah.
like, wow, did I miss something? Did they have like this class that I didn't go to? So I don't
Yeah.
know. I thought like all that stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, yeah, the first 2 semesters were hard and more working because it was just like I went to college, I don't know, 7 a.m. To 9 a.m., go back, start working, then go back again to college to have my other classes and go back, continue working. And it
Yeah.
was just like going from college to work. So it was difficult. And I'm
Yeah.
going to say, just first semester, I think it was good, just trying to balance everything. It wasn't that hard because we were still at COVID.
Yeah.
So everything was virtual. But just second semester, going non person to school, just saying, hey, Chris, like I know I go at 7 a.m., but I need like 30 minutes before to go to school and everything.
Yeah.
Like, it was so I didn't like that because I was losing time just like
Mm-hmm.
going to college.
Yeah.
So I think it was just pretty hard second semester. Didn't like that. I wasn't that excited. But I think what I learned from it is that I just need to balance everything, you know? And it's just like being have this time management.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I'm going to start working from this time to this time. And I have school. And okay, so maybe you're not going out with your friends a weekend, you're not doing all this stuff, but you're going to go somewhere else, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that's the main important thing, that you're sacrificing all those things, and they're not just like, oh, you're sacrificing your family or something like that.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
sacrificing just like just going out with your friends or going to the movie
Yeah.
theater or things like that, that they're not that important, but it's still something that when you're young you're like, I want to go out. But I always tell to myself like, hey, like you're doing something, you know,
Yeah.
you're going after something. And
Yeah.
that's the most important thing, that you have your goal and you're going after it. So if you were just like working and studying, saying, okay, so let's see what happens, like that's not, you're going to get demotivated and you're not going to
Yeah.
go after that goal
Yeah.
because you don't have something there, you know.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was like, okay, so I need to do a better time, a better work managing my time. I need to do it better because I want to go after this. And it's just like, and you can tell me, Chris, you're a CEO and you needed to sacrifice like a lot of things and just for being where you are. So I
Yeah.
think everyone needs to do that. Just
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe you're going to do stuff that you're going to be, I'm so tired, I just want
Yeah.
to go to sleep and just
Mm-hmm.
make this end. But okay, so all the things that you're doing right now are going to get you to the point that you're going to be like, I'm so grateful I did that. Like
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know if I don't know where would I be right now if I didn't do all the stuff that I was
Yeah.
doing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And just like right now, if I was just scared, I was like, yeah, I can't do the interview, and I should tell my aunt like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just like everything happens for a reason, and you just
Yeah.
have to go after your goals. So
That's the important thing, right? So goals, right? So if you got
yeah,
goals, you're not going to get to them unless you're actually pushing yourself,
yeah,
and sacrificing. Right? I mean, you still go out and have fun. You just don't do
yeah,
it as often as maybe some of your friends do because maybe they're not working as much as you are. And and I went through that too when I was in high school when all the my classmates and my friends were going to football games on Friday night. I was actually working and I was working Saturday night. So I didn't go to the parties. I didn't go to anything like that because I had goals. I wanted to have money. So I worked. And I think that was good because it helped develop the work ethic in me even to today. So, but you also have to have those outlets where you're like, all right, I need to go out with my friends. I need to not be antisocial. I need to have fun or else I'm going to go
yeah,
nuts or I'm going to grow gray hair at 20 years old. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. And so and then that's the other part too is like continuing to push yourself and sacrifice. So like you and I are both introverts. We don't like really talking to an audience, but yet here we are having a podcast, right?
yeah,
So this is one thing that Fernanda and I talk about. We're like, hey, we're doing this. Don't ignore all those things in our mind saying, hey, don't do it. You're an introvert, or don't do it because you're going to talk to people who are a higher level than you are. We're ignoring those thoughts. We're going to go forward with this because this is something that we've been wanting to do. We've been talking about this for a while.
yeah.
So anyway, so kind of going off topic there, but what let me see here. Looking back at your excuse me, the first year or even up till now, let's just say up to now, what looking back, what kind of accomplishments stick out to you over the last, I don't know, what, 2 years you've been with us?
Well, I would say it's just a accomplishments that I feel, and I think that's something pretty important. Just traveling by myself. I think
Oh
that
yeah.
was really a big deal for me because
And to a foreign country.
yeah, into a French country. So I
Yeah.
remember just telling my parents, like, I'm going. So yeah, the first time I went with you, Chris.
Uh,
So I stayed with your family and everything. So I
yeah.
think it was just like easier because I already had contact with you. It was like we
Right.
talk like every day because I'm your assistant. So it was just like I
And you knew
already
my
know you.
wife. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
because she works with us too. So you know us both.
exactly. So
Yeah.
as you said, I knew Linda, I knew you. So it was just like it was easy just to go.
Right.
But I think just the second time that we were at this conference in Dallas, it was just like the
Mm,
first time that I was like, okay, so we're going. I'm meeting. I think we met some people from your network also.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just like a big deal for me because
You have
uh,
your
I,
own
I,
hotel room and
yeah,
stuff. And
oh
yeah.
yeah, as you said,
And
it was just
sometimes
like
you had to find your ride to wherever you wanted to go. So it's kind of a different beast.
exactly. So it was just like
Yeah.
different because it was exactly from going to Mexico. I think I get to I don't remember the state that I went to, but just to do the connection. So it was just like being there, asking everyone like, "Hey, like, do you know the gate? The I don't know, gate A?" And they were like, yeah. If you go there, if you take the subway, you are going to get there." So it was just like everything, you
Yeah.
know. It
Yeah.
was just everything was a challenge.
Yeah.
So I remember getting there and just like being at the conference and just talking with all those people. And I remember we were looking for the software. And I was like, well, I need to talk also because that's the software that I'm going to use too. So it
Right.
was just, I don't know, like those small things that you wouldn't notice that, like, okay, so that's easy. You're just going to a conference, you're going to talk with people, you're
Yeah.
going to meet people that are maybe older than you that have like this $1 million company like that
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know, I had the pleasure to meet like amazing people like
Yeah.
Steve Rosenberg, Joni Wolfhard. It was just
Yeah.
like amazing. I was just like so impressed and so grateful that I was there. Just And maybe
Yeah.
I was, as you said, we're both introverts, so maybe not talking that much, but just hearing what they were saying, I was like, wow, I have a lot to learn from them, you know?
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. For me, it was just like a big challenge just to go. But when I went back to Mexico, I was like, wow, I did it.
Yeah.
And it was really good. Just like, wow, it felt good that I was
Yeah.
able to complete the trip and everything. So uh, I remember that when I went back to Mexico, I didn't feel it like an accomplishment that much. It was like,
Hmm.
yeah, maybe I went to this conference, everything. And my mom was like, wow, you're so brave. Like I wouldn't do that. It was just like talking in another language, just going
Yeah.
to the airport, just like the normal things, just pass through security in the airport.
Yeah.
It's just
Sure.
that's something you need to talk to all these courts and all these police officers there. So
Yeah.
it's also a big challenge there.
Hmm.
But it was just like, okay, so I'm just going to talk and we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me it was that, just traveling alone. Also uh being able to give some ideas to the company.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's just like, for me it's also like an accomplishment that sometimes, and I think, and this goes for all the young people, and not also the young people, also the
For
old
everybody.
people, for everybody, yeah, as you
Yeah.
said, is
Hmm.
that sometimes we think like all these ideas that I'm going to give to the CEO or to the leader of this team, they're going to think like, wow, that's dumb. Like, yeah, you shouldn't say
Yeah.
that. It's just
Right.
like, I'm not taking that idea for, I don't know, the next meeting or the next training or whatever you're doing. But it's
Yeah.
like, don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid
Hmm.
to express how you feel. Don't be afraid just to express like your ideas. Like some ideas are good and
Yeah.
none of the ideas are bad. Maybe they're not going like after what the leader is looking for, or
Yeah.
they're not going after
But it helps
the CEO.
influence the direction. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
as you said, it helps influence the
Yeah.
direction. So that's really important, and that's something that we also talk at training, that you can be a leader. Like
Hmm.
doesn't matter if you're a good, like an assistant, if you're like whatever, you can be a leader also where you are. It's just
Yeah.
like being empowered and say like, okay, so I have this idea, I'm going to express it to a team. Maybe we're not going after that idea, but they're going to be like, okay, so maybe from that we're going to take this thing and maybe
Yeah.
we're going to implement this.
Hmm.
So it's just
Hmm.
not being afraid of talking and giving what you think. And it also helps that, for example, it helps that you, Chris, you are a great leader, that you listen to
Thank
people,
you.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like sometimes it's hard because you feel like you're here
Hmm.
just in the floor, the leader is just like unreachable, you know, like I can't talk with him and I just need to do what I'm supposed to do and that's it. But
Yeah.
sometimes if leaders are open in everything, if they're open to their team, to their employees, like you can get really good stuff from
Yeah.
them, because
Hmm.
they're the people that are talking. Like for example, the people that we have the front office, like they talk with the tenants, they talk for example with the owners. So
Yeah.
maybe they're seeing something that you as a leader,
Exactly.
you're not seeing, you know.
Yep.
So
Hmm. They have a different perspective and they can throw that out there. And, sometimes they hit give an idea that just knocks it out of the park and it's amazing. Or sometimes it's a portion of that idea combined with another idea someone else said. We put them together and then like, oh, okay, cool. We got something here.
yeah,
And I always felt like the best ideas come from the people who are actually have their hands on the task itself. Excuse me. So, and you've been able to do that many times. Um, excuse me. So I remember, I know I say this a lot, and probably it's going to get to a point where you're just going to roll your eyes every time I mention this. But um, you know, is we've got a couple of companies, and when you were over here in Washington, or not here, I'm in Houston now, but when we were in Washington, um, it was what 11:30 at night, and
yeah,
people were going to bed, and I was getting ready for bed too, and I was about to just leave, and you said, "What are you going to do about elevation?"
yeah,
And I'm like, what do you mean? And then you just brought up some concerns. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. So we talked for a good half hour or something like that. And that was the kickstart to, now Elevation is a really good company now, and we're expanding quite a bit. And at that time, and your concern was it's not getting the attention it deserves. And that 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
18 years old, your first job, you've been working with us at that time for what, 6, 7 months or so, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that was
And
brave. That was
yeah,
brave to
yeah.
say.
I don't know what it was. I mean, maybe it was late at night. You were tired. Like, screw it. I'm just going to say this. What are you going to do
Yeah.
about elevation? I don't know. But yeah, it was great though. I mean, that is hard, right? So, I mean, do you remember saying that and what caused you to push that out?
Yeah, just like a little disclaimer. I wasn't that rude. It was nice. It was a nice conversation. It was just like, hey Chris, what are you
It
going
was
to do
not
with
rude at all.
elevation? So yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't
it wasn't rude at
something
all.
like
Not at
that.
all.
But
Yeah.
just kidding here. But yeah, I remember that. At that time we were I think like 4 or 5 people on the team, on elevation team.
Hmm.
But we were all just part-time. But it
Yeah.
was just like not that much part-time. It was okay, when we have time, we'll check elevation. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so
Hmm.
it was like, okay, so we have the property management company. It was like, okay, so we have this and we have elevation, but when we have free time, so it was just
Yeah.
bouncing from one side to another. So I just remember that we were talking at the kitchen, and I think you mentioned like, hey, like, how do you see everything, like the company and everything? So I always thought of that
Hmm.
elevation didn't get the attention that it deserved. So I was like, okay, so maybe this is my moment to let Chris know that we need to start doing something for
Yeah.
elevation.
Hmm.
So I remember talking with you and saying like, hey, it's just I see like so much potential in elevation. Like I
Hmm.
think it's going to be a great company. Like you're going to get some good profit from this, and you're going to help also a lot of people just renovating their houses. And
Yeah.
I think that's what uh we also talked about, because I remember we were driving to a property, and then we talked like, wow, this is really cool. Just going to properties, seeing the before and after, just making people happy that they see their units, they see their complex, and they're, wow, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Like
Yeah.
it was just like in bad shape, and right now it looks really good. Like I will
Hmm.
want to live there.
Hmm.
So I think that's just also kind of the thing that pushed me just to let you know, like, hey Chris, we need to do something, because
Yeah.
I really feel happy when someone was like, wow, that's a really cool house.
Yeah. Me too.
Like I live in a really good house, but I would want to live there, like
Yeah.
it's it's amazing, the renovation, the before and
Hmm.
after.
Hmm.
So just making people happy, and just like building the home that they wanted to live
Yeah.
there.
Right.
It's just like it's awesome. So I
Yeah.
remember like, I'm going to let Chris know, because this is something that I feel it's going to get somewhere. And also like all the property managers can say like it's difficult. Like being a
Yeah.
property management company, it's
It's
difficult.
it's
So
very hard. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like you'll have all these complaints, like all the things happening
Hmm.
at the same time. So
Yeah.
this construction is just like a little bit easier, and you make people happy. So they're like, wow. I was like, wow, maybe I should tell Chris. So I remember telling you like, hey Chris, okay, so let's see. What are we doing with elevation, and what do we need to do? So I remember we were just with this accountability chart on my
Yep. Hmm.
iPad. We were just like writing names of the people on the team, and we were like, okay, so who's doing this? Who's not doing this? Like, where should
Yep.
we put like all this stuff? And we're like,
Yeah.
okay, so next meeting we're talking about this, that we
Hmm.
need to put the attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember that you were like, okay, so we're going to do something with elevation. So it's pretty amazing just to see right now all the people that it's on the team. Like we're like 6 7 on the
Yeah.
team, and they're
Yeah.
full time. Like
Yeah.
they're like 100% devoted to the company,
Yeah.
and they're
Hmm.
not like part-time anymore. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just pretty amazing to see how elevation's growing. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned before to you, Chris, it's just like being able to see it from a different perspective, because
Right.
I saw it as your assistant, and right now that I'm the brand developer of Elevation, it's just like it's pretty amazing to see how the company is growing, and I'm just excited to see where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Just
Me
like
too.
how much it's going to grow. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and we're in two cities right now in two different states, which is not always easy to do, but we have operations going on in both places. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty exciting. And I always kind of like look back at that conversation, like, okay, that was the conversation that really kicked ourselves in the butt to get going, right?
Yeah.
And from that point on, we're like, okay, we've got processes now, we got systems in place, we got better software. We're doing a lot. I mean, there's a lot more to do. That's part of building a business, but we've done quite a bit over the last, I don't know, what was it, a year and a half since you and I had that conversation. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was amazing. So you talked a lot about pushing yourself out of the comfort zone, and obviously when you do stuff like that, you learn, and you kind of, and as you learn, you change.
Yeah.
So how would you say this job or this role or this whatever you want to call it, um, how has that affected you, and how has it changed your life? It's yeah,
Well, in many ways, I would say it's just f- to start, it gave me more confidence on what I
mhm,
know. So
yeah,
I was like, okay, I know, I know stuff, and I know I can do it. So I know it gave me confidence. Also,
yeah,
it's just in talking English, just being in a job interview. Like I've seen several from a lot of people just like
yeah,
doing their videos and just trying to explain things. So for me, it was just like watching that. It was like, okay, so I don't want to do that. I don't want
yeah,
people to perceive me in that way.
right,
So I'm going to change it. I'm going to be confident, and I'm going to show people that I have something to say, and that, yeah, it's something correct, or maybe
yeah,
it's not correct, but it's something.
yeah, 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 hmm,
So yeah, for me it was that. Also, just going after your goals but having a plan. And that's
yeah,
something that I've learned, that you don't, if you're always like, okay, so I'm going to do this, but later, like I'm going to leave it there, and I'll have time to do it. Like will never have time to do that. Like
yeah,
never.
yeah,
You just have
hmm,
to be like, I have all this stuff going on, but I'm going to do it because I want to do it, and I have a goal.
yeah,
So that's it. It's just, I don't know, just plan all your stuff, get all your things together, and
yeah,
just going after what you're looking for. So yeah, that was for me, and just
yeah,
organizing my whole life, because when I started working, I didn't have any idea on what I wanted to do with my life. I was like, yeah,
yeah,
maybe I want to, as a chemistry engineer, maybe I want to work in a lab, or I don't know what I want to do with my life, what I want to do.
hmm,
But right now I have like all this path and all these goals that I
yeah,
want to start doing, that I'm so excited. So
yeah, yeah,
uh I I I don't know, like for example, the podcast that we're doing right now is just like a sign that I'm getting out of my comfort zone. And it's just like,
absolutely,
okay, so maybe I'm an introvert, but yeah, maybe there's people that are introverts too that listen to this podcast and be like, okay, so maybe I have to trust in myself, and
yeah,
just I don't know, just I know it's a challenge sometimes,
yeah,
and just trying to get out of your comfort zone. And I think that's the main thing that happened to me. Like every time having the interview, traveling, like answering the phone, emails, everything was getting out from my comfort zone.
yeah,
Because
hmm,
as a young student, you always think, I'm going to finish college and then I'm going to start working. And sometimes it's not like that. You're going to get
right,
out of college, and they're not going to give you the 1 million job that
yeah,
it's going to be amazing.
Right.
So it was just like, okay, so if I want to get at this point, I need to get out from my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So that was for me, just like tr- uh trusting myself. And I remember just starting this job also, I got my self-esteem not that high. So it was
Yeah.
just like seeing that people trusting me, seeing that people believe in me. It was just
Yeah.
like, wow, a game changer.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I can do it. And that's what I was saying at the beginning. I don't want to repeat myself, but
Mhm.
like you need to believe in yourself. Like you
Yeah.
need to be the first person that believes in you, like you.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
sometimes all these people believe in you and you're like, yeah, maybe they see something, but they're incorrect. They're not seeing the right me,
Yeah.
and no,
Right.
it's just like you're the one that you're not saying that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's for me, just getting out from my comfort zone, just
Yeah.
getting confident, and just like my self-esteem went higher. And right
Yeah.
now I felt comfortable also talking with uh, people that are older than me, just like,
Yeah.
okay, so I want to learn from you. I
Yeah.
really want to learn from you. I think I'm going to improve a lot. So yeah, just
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember just going to Houston last time, and
Mhm.
we were just like at this patio, just like talking, and
Yeah.
it was so cool. I was just hearing like all these business owners, and I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
I really want to be here, and all the sacrifices and everything is worth it because I'm here and I'm
Yeah.
listening to all those influential people. So
Yeah.
yes, I
That
don't know
was
if
that was a big thing too, because like that first night there in Houston,
yeah.
I remember at one point in the patio there, you know, just remembering who was there. There's a couple of millionaires there. There's a billionaire sitting there talking to us, and it wasn't anything formal. We were just having a conversation about things, and a lot of it was
Yeah.
like, here's the problems we're having. Everyone's got problems in their business, no matter what level they're at. So yeah, I was kind of in the same boat as you because I was there. I'm like, man, I'm learning from these guys. Like, I mean, we were there to learn, right? That was the
Yeah.
purpose of it. So, but yeah, that's pretty amazing, and I'm glad you can experience that. Um, and I like for me, being able to observe you over the last year and a half, 2 years, I've seen your confidence get better. I've seen your English get even. I mean, the other day you used a word that I never used because it's a higher level word vocabulary. You said it, and I'm like, wow, she's actually articulating herself better than I can. So it was impressive. So I've seen you grow a lot. Just as a person, and we've talked about this last week, in fact, as a person, and your skills have developed. You're kind of moving in a way where, okay, I want to do this. Now I'm more interested in this. So we got you into the brand development. So, it's part of life. And it's kind of fun for me as someone, as you always say, that I'm an old person, observing a younger person kind of go through life and experience things and kind of figuring out what they want to do is a lot of fun for me. Um, but part of coming out of your comfort zone, part of developing your leadership, part of your um, uh, journey of like influencing people and helping them out is the team training that we do every month.
Yeah.
And so, explain what we do, how often, and if you can remember how it came about, because I'm trying to remember how did we decide we're going to do this, and I can't remember. So maybe you do.
Okay, so team training, we do it once a month. Like I think at the end of the month we'll always try to do it sometimes
Yeah,
uh at the middle, but yeah, always ending the month. So I I think we do it just like from what the team needs,
yeah,
like for
hmm,
example, okay, so we're seeing the team needs leadership, needs motivation, needs vulnerability. So we do training like that. I remember we started the training because when I started being your assistant, I remember you sending me all this podcasts. And you were like, hey, Fernanda, listen to this podcast. And this is a really great podcast and everything. It was just like, it was constant. Like, I remember having all this 5 podcasts from 40 minutes that I needed to hear. I was like, wow, Chris really, really loves that. That's what we are doing right now, podcast,
it's
because
funny.
Chris
Yeah.
loves podcasts. So,
That's
but
true.
yeah, I remember it was that, like you sending me podcasts and you're like, hey, I'm going to send this one to the team. Like maybe they like it. And I was like, okay, yeah, send to the team. And I remember you sent it to the team, and it was just like that. You were sending some type of podcast and everything, but like you don't know if they hear it, you don't know if they watch it. It
Right.
was just
Yeah.
like, okay, so we'll see. Sometimes you send also books. So I remember, I think you mentioned like, okay, so it would be great if we had something like that, just like maybe training or
Yeah.
something that we're making sure that the team is listening what we're looking.
Right.
So I can't remember that well if it a situation happened or something about ownership that we were like, okay, so we'll do it. Because I remember the first training, I think it was from Joko Willing. So
Choco.
I think
Okay.
it was the first one, or if it was from Craig Rochelle, can't remember that well, but I remember that we went to the training. I had like this handout that I sent to the team with the
Yep.
questions, like, and there's just simple questions. For example, if they're watching, just the last one that we did for extreme ownership, like they watched this TED talk from Joko. It was really good.
Yeah.
And like one question is like, what does your team expect from you? Like,
Yeah.
okay, so they're just like easy questions, but they really make you reflect on yourself. So I remember just sending a handout saying like, hey team, just we're having training on Friday. Just answer those questions. We'll discuss them. I had like this slides prepared. I didn't know what I was doing that at that
Mm.
time. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, so we'll see if that works, like if the
Yeah.
team likes it. So I remember having like the slides and everything, and the team really liked it. And just like getting the feedback from the team and say, hey, like you
Yeah. They
like
love it.
it, like
Hmm.
is something that we need to change. They were like, no, like we'll love it. Like
Yeah.
continue doing this because this
Yeah.
is something that we really enjoyed. So a training that really pops into my mind, and I know for you too, Chris, is the
Uh,
power of vulnerability.
yeah. Hmm.
That was a
Yeah.
really good one. I think
Yeah.
just this video that we had, this person, I don't remember the name of the lady that was talking, but it was really good. Like if you search in YouTube like the power of vulnerability, you're
Yeah.
going to see the TED talk. It was pretty
Right.
good.
Yeah.
I remember talking with the team, just everyone being so open about their feelings.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's just like sometimes team training doesn't mean like, okay, so we're seeing, okay, so how many calls did we have this week? How many projects
Yeah.
are we checking right now? It's more like, okay, so your team is going to get better if they are better as a person, like
Yeah.
each one.
Yeah.
So that's what I always say at the end, like, hey team, doesn't matter if you didn't answer the question, if you didn't talk, but if it resonates with you, if you took something out from the training, that's it. Like
Yeah.
I complete my job if that's what
Yeah.
happened with you, so
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know, seeing the team just so happy and expecting like, okay, I want training, like I really need training, and being like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm happy we're doing training.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes we get busy, like, okay, so we have all this stuff to do, we don't have the time to do it this month, but it's just the team miss it, so it's like,
Yeah. Exactly. You hear it from the
yeah,
team like, hey, when we're going to do training again? Yeah,
exactly.
it's funny because we'll do a topic like the vulnerability one, right?
Yeah,
Where we'll pick the YouTube video we'll watch, we'll come up with some questions, and I don't know how you feel, but like for me, I'm like, oh man, is this going to be too much? Is everyone going to be quiet because they're like, hey, you're trying to dig into my personal life or
yeah,
something, right? So there's always like for me, I always feel a little nervous before we do it, and just for anyone who does this training, there's always going to be several periods of awkward silence in training because nobody wants to go first, right? And it's on people like Fernanda and myself to say, okay, well, I'll go first. This is what I say, and then what I do is I have like all of the team members. I could see them all on my screen, and then as I'm talking, and if I see someone who's engaged with what I'm saying, I usually say, oh, what do you think? and then it draws them out, right? So that's kind of like that's how you kind of get over that silence. But going back to that nervousness of topics and stuff, sometimes people will be several team members have gotten emotional during training, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And shared some things that were just like, wow, in a virtual world, this is important because you don't like Fernanda and I just know each other because she's in Mexico, I'm up here. She does, what I told her to do, and then I get, her results from it. But when you do training like this, you get to know the team a little bit better and you get stronger as a team. You feel like more like a family.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, "Oh, we're like a family," but those are just words. But I've heard people in our team actually say that, and even people who we've let go in the past still enjoyed working with us and still talk great about us. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with the training that we do. So let me see here. As far as like, you know, the audience here are either people who are in Mexico looking for virtual work, or maybe business owners up here in the US who don't know about the virtual team environment. And maybe they're about to hire the first or second or third or whatever person. What would you say? What would be the important thing to have a strong work culture in a virtual environment?
Well, it's just I know being virtual is difficult. Like for example, for a business owner, I know like are they really working? Because you're not seeing them. You're just
Yeah.
like behind the screen and it's like I don't know if they're doing their job. Maybe they're just like watching a movie or something and
Right.
well, it's work time. So and also as a virtual assistant, it's difficult because you feel like okay, so I don't have like that direct contact, like I'm not in an office and everything. So
Yeah.
I think just also like all the core values that we have at the company are important
Yep. Hmm.
uh for being virtual, that it's just always improving. Also being a team player, I think
Yep.
that's pretty important because we've had people that they're not team players and it gets difficult more in the virtual world because you
Yep.
need to talk with your team just like hey, like did you check this, did you do this and everything. If you don't have people that they're like I don't want to talk with anyone, like you are going to have problems there. So
Yep. Hmm.
communication is always a piece that you need to be in constant communication as an employee and as a CEO.
Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah, I think just like I wouldn't say trusting everyone because like sometimes happens and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, so I shouldn't just believe in them or I shouldn't like trust in them because this is what happened. It's always going with cautious, like, okay,
Yeah.
so I'm hiring this person. Like you're going to see the type of person in the interview. Like, and
Hmm.
also you're going to see the type of person of CEO that if you're in the interview.
Yeah.
But if you're like, okay, so they communicate well, they're a team player, they're eager to learn because I think that's something really important in the virtual world, just being
Yeah.
eager to learn because like we have all these softwares, all these things changes and like you need to have a solution to all the problems,
Yeah.
and sometimes you're like okay, so we're having like all these problems, so and what solutions do you have? Like
Yeah.
I don't have any solutions, and more in the virtual world because you're just like by your own at your
Yeah.
house, so
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
difficult. So
Hmm.
I think it's just being like that and also have integrity on yourself and just like a strong work ethic.
Hmm.
Because it's easy because it's easy. You're not no one's watching you if you're virtual, but like there you know the type of person that you want to be, like
Yeah.
you're going to get a lot from this job and it's going to be pretty amazing. You're going to learn all this stuff. So why
Yeah.
don't do it? So and also you're going to learn a lot of communication skills because sometimes when you're at your office, you just go and be like, hey, I need this. But you're seeing the person. So you're not being rude. You're just like, hey, I need those papers. Do you have it right now? Yeah,
Yeah.
I have them. But you're seeing the person, but in virtual, sending a message. And that's something that we saw. Like if you send a message, sometimes you can uh j- right, you get the wrong meaning out of that message, and you're like,
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
person is mad at me, like this
Yeah.
person is angry, and they're just like really demanding. And
Yeah.
maybe they didn't say that like that, but it's just a message, it's a voice message or something. You're not seeing the person. And I think that's just a really difficult thing. So
Yeah.
for all the CEOs or virtual assistants, like, you
Mhm.
need to have really good communication and
Yeah.
assertive communication. Like, for example, okay, so I don't feel comfortable with this. Okay, so I'm going to let it know in a good way, like articulating myself in the best way that I can, because you're virtual. You're not seeing the person. I think that's the most challenging thing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
as a CEO and a virtual assistant. So I
Yeah.
would say, just like, if you have a good communication, you're just like in the next level.
Mhm.
And because
Yeah.
it's hard just on emails, because also for the owners, you're not seeing the owner, you're just talking with them via email, you're just talking with them messages or with vendors, and
Yeah.
they're trusting you with their money,
Yeah.
and they're thinking like, okay, so this person is going to do a good job with my property and everything. So I think it's just like, communicate it in the right way is going to help you get to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And for, just for the business owners, I think one of the things that I try to do often is reach out to team players randomly just to see how they're doing, because I want them to know that they're all important. They may not report directly to me because we got a few managers in there. And I talk to some team members more than others. And the ones that I don't talk to often, make a point to reach out to them. And even like with you, Fernanda, like, you and I talk more than anyone, on the team. I still reach out to you and like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not asking for any like updates on what you're working on right now. I just want to know, like, hey, I know you started school today. How did class go? So things like that is important because it helps develop that relationship. And you hit a good point about like the written text can be misinterpreted, which is why I think it's important to actually have a voice option too, right? Because we use
Yeah.
WhatsApp for our communication. So whenever you're writing something and you feel like, oh, you know what, this is coming across a little rude, let me just use my voice. That way they can hear my tones and whatnot out of it. So, and that's important. And then there's some times where you need to get on Zoom and have certain conversations. That way you can see body language and all the different forms of communication go along with that. So you definitely have to have all three methods um, implemented in your company to have a really strong culture and a strong team.
Yeah, great. I think that's pretty important. And as you
Yeah.
said, it's sometimes checking with your team on how they're doing, like,
Yeah.
because sometimes it just affects how they work,
Hmm.
and you're not seeing them. For example, in an office, you see that someone's crying or someone's just like
Yeah.
in a really bad mood, and you can just go and ask them like, hey, what's
Right.
happening, how you're doing. But in virtual, like, you don't see them. You're just like, maybe they're just having the worst day of their life, and
Yeah.
they're not. And that's what sometimes happen. Like, okay, so I really had a bad day, I'm crying, I just feel like
Yeah.
horrible right now.
Yeah.
And just like your work just goes down. So the CEO is like, what's happening? Like, you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do today. Like, what's happened? Do you want to quit, or like, what's that's happening today?
Yeah.
And like, the person is just having a really bad day. So I think just checking with your team, and also
Yeah.
as a virtual assistant, being honest, like, hey, I
Exactly.
just feel really bad today. Like, this happened to me today, and I will need time. Like, I'm going to work and everything, but just if you see that my performance today is not that good, it's because of that. And
Yeah.
that's going back to communication. Like, you need
Exactly.
to ask your team how they're doing. You need to also let your CEO like what's happening in your life. And
Yeah.
I know sometimes you can be like, okay, I don't want to tell them, because it's just like they're going to, I don't know, get into my life or something. But
Yeah.
it's your work and it's your job, and you're always here. So if your mood changes, like, people are going to notice. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's funny you say that because like there's times where I'm feeling a little angry, and I think I come across over my messages that like, okay, let me hide my anger real quick. And it could be whatever situation like that just bothered me, or maybe something is going on that is maybe something I don't want to have to deal with, but I have to. Um, but I always feel like, I think I can hide this. But after, the moment had passed, you and I will talk, and I'm like, hey, Fernanda, just let you know I had a bad day. This is what happened. She goes, yeah, I know. I could tell something was wrong with you. So, to your point, you can certainly tell when someone's having a bad day.
yeah,
And you can act all you want, but what would be good is like if you act like you're having a good day, but still be honest that, hey, I'm having a rough day today, but I'm going to make the best of it. But I just want to let you know this is what happened.
yeah,
And you don't want to come across as like the person coming up with excuses, like I don't feel like working today, so I'll just tell them that my girlfriend broke up with me or whatever. You always come at it with a positive attitude, but always be honest with what's going on in your life too, right? You and I talk about that a lot because, with school and in life, just like, hey, just be sure you tell me what's going on because I want to make sure that this doesn't ruin your life, and then that doesn't affect, we need to have this open communication, which I think we've done pretty good at over the years, for us. But anyway, we're getting to the end here. Let me ask you just a couple more questions. One, what would you say is your favorite memory over the last couple of years?
my favorite memory over the last couple of years. Okay, so that's a good question. I would say
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite memory over the last couple of years was like in work when we had this meeting at Christmas that we were just drinking. Everyone was drinking
Oh yeah, yeah, I
something.
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was really cool
that
because
was fun.
I don't know, like we don't have that much because we're virtual, but I
Yeah,
remember just like everyone just like grab something to drink. If you have a milkshake, if you have like whatever you want, we're
yeah,
just going to talk about what we do on Christmas. It was the 24th of December.
yeah,
So I remember all the team being happy, talking,
yeah,
and yeah, it's just like also we have like this in Zoom, this filter set with like hats and everything. It was
yeah.
just like so
Aaron put a
fun.
hat on. That was funny.
Yeah. So I think that's when you looked at your team not as just like employees or a CEO or
Yeah,
just like teammates. No, it's still like they're kind of like your friends, you know? Like at the
exactly.
end of the day, we're a family.
Yeah,
So yeah, it was I think that's mine. Just
that's
like
fun.
looking through the time is
Yeah,
really good.
we didn't do really anything this Christmas, did we? I
No,
can't remember.
we take the day off. So
Oh, we took the
that's
day off, right? It's
yeah.
like, okay, let's take the 24th off. Next Christmas, let's do that again. That'll be cool. That'll be a lot of fun. Let's be sure
Yeah.
to do that. Okay, cool. So moving on, what are some of your uh so your new position, brand developer? What are some of your goals that you have for that?
Well, as a brand developer, I think just getting putting elevation in the map, you know, like
Hmm, hmm.
people just noticing elevation
Yeah.
because I believe in the company. I think that's the most important thing. Like if you believe on your product, if you believe in the
Hmm.
company, like you're going to get there. So I believe that we're doing a great job. I believe that
Yeah.
we're a great team, that we can really help business owners. So
Yeah.
no, that we can help also clients, investors. So I don't know. I think for me it would be just getting elevation to the next level on marketing. Just like for example, have an audience of social media that
Yeah.
I'm trying to get there. So also get clients and people that are like, I'm an investor. I really need this renovation. I really need someone that it's going to understand my investor's point of view because
Yeah.
uh, like also like the companies from investors to investors. And I know that's a used phrase, like you hate that phrase, Chris, but like that's it's
It's
true. So
overused.
it's overused.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I think just I don't know, just seeing people that are happy with the company.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
also I want people that come back to a company, you know, like
Yeah.
did this project with you, and I want to do the next one with you because it's
Exactly.
just pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
like we got this testimonial from one client, and it was just like amazing. I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
this
It
is
was a
what
good
I
one.
work for, like just to
Yeah.
hear those kind of compliments and this kind
Hmm.
of things. Because at the end of the day, if they're happy with elevation, they're happy with all the team, they're happy with me, they're happy with you, they're happy with everyone, like
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we just put everyone puts like this little piece of the puzzle on the big thing, on the
Yeah.
big elevation company. So yeah, for me it would be that, just making investors happy, making homeowners happy with our services, and also uh letting investors know that we're there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
great.
yeah.
I love it. I love
Oh,
that those
thank
goals.
you.
What about your personal goals? Any? You have any you want to share?
Well, personal goals is just right now learning a lot from college, I think.
Yeah.
Getting a lot from it, because I know there's a lot of things that I can learn from.
Hmm.
And for example, just like last semester, I took a lot of things from college that I'm implementing at work. So I think that's for me, just
That's cool.
learning a lot, reading also a lot of books, just and also
Yeah.
being more conscious about my health, doing more exercise, and just
Yeah.
eating better. I think that's the everyday goal of everyone. If you
Yeah.
ask
I
someone
know
like, "What's your
exactly.
personal goal?" Like, I want to get be healthier, and then go to
Yeah.
work out. So, but it's true.
Exactly.
Like, we'll
Yeah.
need to do that.
Especially if you have a busy schedule, right? Like,
Yeah.
for anyone who's running a company or someone who's going to school full time and working full time, that is probably one of the top three goals anyone would have. Um, what advice would you give people your age who want to work for a foreign company in a virtual environment?
I would say just go for it. Like,
Yeah.
don't be scared. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not going to get it, if they close your door, if they close the door, 100 are going to open. Just
Yeah.
like keep trying, just keep getting
Yeah.
better, and just
Yeah.
educate yourself. Also, just like read books, read podcasts. Like, go for these leaders. Like for
Hmm.
example, if you're like, no, I don't know, like Craig Rochelle,
Yep.
Joko Welling, Maxwell. Like, if you go, like, if you read these leaders, if you believe in those
Hmm.
leaders, and it doesn't have to be them, but just like people that you agree with their culture, with their values,
Yeah.
like, you're going to get something out of it. So
Hmm.
I would say, just like for the young people that want to start working for a foreign company, it's just like, go for it. Don't be scared. Like,
Yeah.
get out from your comfort zone, and
Yeah.
just like really make sure that you're willing to sacrifice things, because I
Yeah.
know when you're young you want to do everything, and you're going to be like, okay, I want to do everything, but I also want to have like this time to hang out with my friends and everything. And you're going to have time, like, you're
Yeah.
really trust me, you're going to have time,
Yeah.
but you just have to be 100% devoted that this is what you want to do, because
Yeah.
it's going to be hard. And
Hmm.
I'm not going to lie, it's hard, but
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's what you're looking for, just go for it and don't be scared at all. So
Nice. Love it. That's great. Cool. So that's kind of like the end of the overall, like, who is Fernanda? But
thank you.
a couple of last questions. One of our questions that we ask, as you know, every guest is, which book was the most influential book that you've ever read?
So for me, it would be Men Searching for Meaning. Like, if you haven't read that book, read it. It's amazing. Like, you understand humanity a little bit more. And it's just like, if you're a business owner, if you're just like a normal person, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you're doing, but like, you should read that book, because it's really good, just to understand why people act the way they act. And
Yeah.
also, I don't know, what how's humanity, like, it changed me a lot to read that
Wow.
book. So yeah, it's pretty amazing book. It's really short book. I think it has like 200 pages. It's not that
Okay.
hard to read, but yeah, it's a recommendation for everyone that listen to this podcast. Just go
Yeah, I
read
haven't
that
read that
book.
one yet. I
Yeah.
haven't read it yet, so I'll have to read that one too. All
Okay.
right, cool. So if there's someone who relates to your story and they want to get in touch with you because maybe they have a question or whatever, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, if you want to contact me, you can contact through the social media channel that we have on Instagram. If you go to the description of the this podcast, you're going to find there the social media for Chris and me,
Yeah,
also for the podcast. So yeah, you can contact me. You can send me a DM like, hey, and hey, I want to go as a virtual assistant. Like, do you have any recommendations for that? Or if you're a CEO and you want to hire a virtual assistant and you're scared and like, I don't
yeah,
know how it's going to work, like, doesn't matter, just shoot me with a question and I'm
yeah.
going to reply. So yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So she does our Elevation Instagram and all the other social media outlets, and she does my personal Instagram. So you can, if you want to send a message to her on my personal, she'll see that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and you hit a good point. If there's somebody who is looking to hire somebody virtually and they're afraid to, a business owner here in the US or even in Canada, and you want to talk to Fernanda or myself or both of us actually over a Zoom call or whatever, reach out to us. We'd be happy to give you some pointers. We can help you along in the process too. So we'd love we'd love to help out a business owner here in the US, but we'd also like to hire more people down in the virtual world too. So but anyways, Fernanda, thank you so much for opening up and telling us your story and for your time. And yeah, thanks for everything that you do.
No, thank you. I'm pretty happy to be here. It was just amazing to be the second guest. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's just awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me, Chris, and thank you for the questions. I think it
yeah,
was a great episode of the podcast. So yeah,
I
thank
agree.
you everyone, and thank you for everyone that is listening to the podcast. And
Yeah,
we have social media there, and yeah,
yep,
just I we hope that this was helpful for you. So thank you.
absolutely.
Hey everyone, Steve Rosenberg. We're here in Florida with palm trees, beaches, sunshine. You do not want to miss my Business Mansion Mastermind, October 12th through the 14th in Houston, Texas. I'm going to show you how to take your business to the next level, and I'm bringing in some of the top people in the business world. I'm talking Brad Lee, the Iron Cowboy, Dr. Kevin Elko, and Errol Allen, all to help you reshape your business and your mindset in 3 days, followed by unlimited coaching after that. Go to bizmansion.com and I'll see you in Houston.